Back in the day, when the movie came out, I was skeptical. Tired of remakes, I thought, this is only another cash grab, shitting on a great legacy. And I noticed it's a prequel, not a remake, but it was still fishy to me. Then I checked the director, and I saw Ridley Scott, the director of one of my favorite movies of all time, Alien, the one who started the saga. So yeah, I was excited for this one, but I walked off the theater bitter and cursing. But time passes, fine boys get older and gets perspective, so I decided to watch it again. It opens up with the beautiful scenery of clouds, mountains, and valleys and rivers. Eventually, a shadow looks around and we see a strange ship hovering around the waterfall. A hooded figure walks towards the edge of the waterfall. We see the face of the figure, and it appears to be from an alien race resembling beautiful Squidward. The alien drinks some dark liquid as he sees the spaceship leaving him behind. The liquid rots him from the inside and destroys his DNA. He starts disintegrating and falls to the water. Part of his DNA survives, and then it cuts to human cells replicating, implying that the first link of humanity was the Squidward, and that the scene takes place in a newly formed Earth. Then we get introduced to our first two characters, married couple of scientists, Doctors Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway. Exploring a cave, they find pictographs dating 35,000 years old. They recognize aliens in the paintings, all demonstrating the same configuration of orbs. The transition goes to space. We go inside the spacecraft called Prometheus and see David, the droid played by Fassbender. David, aided by the Cerebra-style helmet, scans Shah's memories, who's inside a stasis pod. It seems kinda weird and invasive, but cool nevertheless. We see Elizabeth's childhood memories of a funeral procession. Her father explains that the man they're carrying is dead. "Where did he go?" asks Elizabeth. He responds, "To paradise, to somewhere beautiful." She asks, "How do you know it's beautiful?" "Because that's what I choose to believe." This scene demonstrates the mindset of Dr. Shaw, who puts her faith into her research. Then we follow the droid going around with his day. We see him learning German, watching movies, riding a bike and playing basketball at the same time, which brings some bad memories. The insides of the Prometheus looks beautiful, Major Nostromo vibes from Alien 1. You can see Ridley's hands all over it. The ship reaches their destination. The first to wake up from stasis is Meredith Vickers, played by Charlize Theron. She chats briefly with the droid and commands him to reanimate the rest. The group gets reanimated, and in a scene tribute of the first Alien, we see them grouping together in the diner room. In another room by a pool table, we get introduced to Capitan Janek, played by Idris Elba. The Capitan is smoking a cigar and setting a mini Christmas tree as Vickers pass by and asks what he's doing. He proceeds to explain that it is important to show that time has passed. Meredith sees the activity as pointless and tells him that the briefing is about to start. We see some traits of the two characters. Vickers is a no-bullshit, pragmatic character, and the Capitan is more relaxed, maybe even unprofessional. In the dinner table, other two characters clash. Milburn, from the biology department, introduces himself and tries to shake Fiefel's hand. But the geologist just stares at him, annoyed, still dazed from the stasis, saying that he's not there for making friends, only for money. Kinda forced and cliché interaction. All the crew gets together for the briefing. I'm gonna take advantage of this shot to summarize the characters. Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway, researchers. Rafe Milburn, biologist. Bramwell Jackson. Security. Sean Fifield. Geologist. Kate Ford. Chemist. David. Linguist. Benedict Ravel. Technician. Emun Chance. Co-pilot. Idris Janek. Captain. The only prominent character missing from the briefing. On the front, leading the meeting is Peter Weyland, founder. Meredith Vickers, overlooker. They play a video from the employer, Weyland Corporation. An old man appears on the screen introducing himself as Peter Weyland, the man behind the corporation of Alien One. He brings the topic of mortality, saying that he's probably gonna be dead by the time they reach destination. He brings forward existential questions like what is your purpose, or what happens when you die. He says that Doctors Holloway and Shaw are the people that convince him that there could be an answer to these questions. Weyland says they're in charge, and finally mentions the tale of Prometheus and how he tries to put humanity in the same footing as gods and pay the price. That now is time for his return. This is the theme of the movie, the mythic tale of Prometheus, searching for the fire, the knowledge, at a great cost. Shaw and Holloway take over the briefing. They show archaeological findings of several cultures, all sharing the same pattern, the orbs. The orbs are a map of a galactic system that the alien race called engineers were showing to mankind. Based on calculations, Dr. Shaw and Holloway managed to find the system, with a planet that has a moon capable of sustaining life, and they just arrived to it. According to the theory, the engineers design us. The theory gets mocked by Fifield and Milburn, citing Darwinism. But Shaw says in a sad tone that that's what she chooses to believe, alluding to the memory of her father. Because she's not a scientist, she's a fucking priest. Before entering the planet, Vickers summons the doctors to her cabin. The cabin is like a lifeboat, with their own supply of oxygen, a medpod, and several commodities. Meredith makes it clear that the doctors are employees. She, unlike Weyland, doesn't have any faith in the research. If they find the engineers, she commands them not to engage and report to her. The ship enters the atmosphere, passing some storms. Eventually, they see a big desert and some structures in the middle of a valley. They land next to the structures. Holloway requests a survey team to the captain. Janek says that they only have 6 hours of light left, better tomorrow. Charlie responds that this can't wait, and then David is coming with them as a possibly translator for the aliens. The droid learns the language based in the research. The team suits up. Holloway asks David why he needs a suit. The droid says that he's programmed to mimic human behavior and appear as human as possible. Not wearing it will defeat the purpose. This strikes me as a really stupid question by Holloway. It's prudent for even the droid to wear the suit. They don't know that bacteria, virus, organisms might be flying in the air. If the droid gets contaminated, it might be spread to the crew. We can see certain animosity grow between Charlie and David. Already taking shots in previous scenes, the droid appears to resent to be treated as a furniture by the doctor. The crew gets inside some vehicles and go to the caves. Back in the ship, the captain and Vickers monitor the mission. Fifield releases some drones who scan the cave, mapping the whole structure. As a side note, we don't see the security team inside the cave. We barely see anything of them in the whole movie actually. They reach a place where water and sunlight make their way in from the ceiling. The crew examines the place and confirms a macroclimate. The atmosphere is similar to Earth and breathable. Holloway in all his brilliance decides to remove his helmet. Shah says not to do it. Base Control says not to do it, but he replies, "Don't be a skeptic." He removes the helmet and breathes. The scene plays like he's doing something really risky, and when he does it and confirms that he can breathe, all is good, I guess, so the rest of the crew does the same. The air is breathable, but again, you don't know what the fuck is floating around and introduced into your body. Your theory is that this place has conditions to sustain life, so bacteria, viruses, organisms and other things that your body has zero protection is just gonna breathe all in. So yeah, Holloway and the rest show that they're idiots, totally unprepared for the mission. If they go back to the ship, there's potential of a larger infection. If they go back to Earth, there's potential of a global pandemic. They keep advancing. David finds some scriptures and presses the signs in order, activating a hologram. The hologram shows a bunch of aliens fleeing of something. The crew follows the holograms and they find the body of an alien. Is decapitated. Fifield gets scared and wants out. He grumbles something about loving rocks and not bodies to Shaw. Very cringy dialogue. Milburn joins him and the two head back to the ship. They examine the body and determine that the alien has been dead for 2,000 years. David deciphers more signs and activates a door. Behind the door is the missing head of the alien. They enter the room. Inside there is a giant stone head and capsules everywhere, similar to incubators of facehuggers from Alien 1. There's also murals on the ceilings. We also see some worms crawling on the floor, unnoticed by the crew. Soon the paintings in the wall start to change, and some strange substance to ooze from the capsules. Shaw realizes that they just altered the atmosphere in the room, and they decide to leave. Elizabeth and Ford take the alien head. Outside, a storm of silicon is approaching. The captain warns them. David decides to take one of the capsules. They jump to the vehicles and go to the ship, the storm following quickly. In the last moment, the head of the alien falls from the rover, and Dr. Shaw, with no regards of her life, tries to retrieve it, only to be pushed and thrashed around by the storm. Charlie goes to save her, but ends up trapped too. In the end, the droids save both with the pulley system. Holloway, of all people, chastises Shaw about her risky behavior. What a joke. They decontaminate and enter the ship. The captain, supposedly supervising the mission, asks, "Where's Milburn and Fifield?" Of course they don't know. Janek finally decides to contact them, saying that the conditions are impossible to attempt a rescue, to stay put and warm. They're gonna get them in the morning. So I guess the captain and crew were taking a nap or something. They knew a storm was coming and didn't help two of the members navigate the cave, because fuck them, I guess. It also doesn't make sense that of all the people, the geologist who helped them navigate and map the cave is the one who gets lost. Shaw and Ford decontaminate the head. Apparently there is no contagion risk after being sterilized. I wonder how they can assure that foreign life forms can be resistant to your methods and undetectable by your technology. They try to animate the head giving electroshocks but it explodes. Okay. Elizabeth finds that the engineered DNA is a match to human DNA. David communicates with somebody in a stasis pod with the Cerebra. It is implied that it's Wayland. Vickers confronts the droid, demanding to know what her father said, but David refuses. Then the droid takes the capsule that he smuggled off the tomb. Apparently nobody noticed? That makes no sense. He did it in front of everyone. The captain had video on him. He pulls a vial of the capsule, containing the mysterious dark substance. Then goes to Holloway, who is drunk, depressed about having found another dead civilization. David offers him a drink. Holloway repeatedly insults the droid, reminding him that he's just a robot. The droid subtly puts a dark slime in the drink, and Charlie drinks it. We don't know why David does this. I assume that they're orders from Wayland. But probably the choice of test subject from the droid isn't arbitrary. David had already shown certain animosity towards Holloway, but maybe he targeted him because he was in a vulnerable state. Meanwhile, Milburn and Fifield keep wandering to the caves and encounter a pile of aliens' bodies. I don't know why they keep moving when their orders were to stay put, to save oxygen and warm. The captain detects movement from a life form and informs them. Understandably, they freak out, but Janek dismisses it as a glitch. Fifield and Milburn protest, but the captain nonchalant says, "Well, sleep tight, don't bug each other." How is this the captain that they choose? He's terrible. Sassy attitude in a serious situation. Shaw shares with Charlie the finding of the matching DNA of Squidwards and humans. This improves Holloway's mood. So anyone can create life with the adequate circumstances. Charlie says there is nothing special about the creation of life. This upsets Shaw, who is unable to have children. Holloway comforts her, and they have sex. There is zero chemistry between the actors. Vickers enters the control room and examines the map. She strikes conversation with Janek, who is drunk. The captain flirts in a very bold and direct way. The dialogue is awful, everything seems cringy and forced, but the captain succeeds in tempting Vickers. So up they go to get laid. No one stays to monitor the two lost men. It's kinda odd in the first place that the captain will be monitored by himself. It's apparent that Janek doesn't give a fuck. He's getting drunk in the job, so I will think that his crew is just as lazy and unprofessional. Milburn and Fifield end up entering the tomb, maybe because it's less cold. We see Milburn chilling with a thermal blanket. They seem alarmed with all the black ooze pouring off the capsules. Little dark rivers begin to form between the containers. Suddenly, a serpent-like creature rises off the dark ooze. Fifield is wary, but Milburn says he can handle the situation and to stay calm. I guess because he's a biologist? But this is a foreign life form. He has no idea what it does. He communicates the finding to the ship, but there is no one there to hear. So Milburn approached this freaky serpent like he's a puppy dog. He even extends his hand like he's going to pet it. The serpent creature expands itself, taking the form of a cobra, clearly showing some kind of aggression. Milburn tries to calm it by talking to it gently, saying things like, it's okay baby, in baby voice, like he's Timothy Treadwell talking to a bear. Unsurprisingly, the cobra coils around his arm. Only then Milburn comprehends the gravity of the situation and pleads with his teammate for help. But Fifield is terrified and freezes. The snake coils with more force and eventually breaks the biologist's arm. Fifield finally reacts and pulls out the knife, cutting the cobra's head. The serpent spills acidic blood on the geologist's helmet, and another head grows back. Fifield stumbles and falls face first in the pool of dark ooze. The helmet melts into his face, dying horrifically. The serpent enters Milburn's suit by the orifice created by his broken arm and crawls inside his helmet, killing him. A new morning comes up. Holloway wakes up and looks himself in the mirror. He sees his bloodshot eyes and for a second a worm crawling inside. The captain communicates with the room and Shaw takes the call. He communicates that they can't contact the two lost men and are sending a team to retrieve them. So I guess the captain of the crew didn't check on them until the morning? Nice! The rescue team goes to the cave. Inside, the droid separates from the group. The rest goes to the tomb and finds Milburn's body. Holloway is sick and stumbles around the tomb. They go to the ship in a hurry to take care of Charlie. This time they do require full quarantine to the ship. Davy stays, with Vickers following his movement from the ship, both of them operating the agenda of Weyland. The droid enters a series of rooms. He activates another recording of holograms where the aliens see a map of our galaxy. When the recording is over, he realizes there is a stasis pod with someone in it, and it appears to be alive. Outside, Captain Janek and the rest of the crew arrives to the ship, with Holloway getting worse. The doors open to find Vickers armed with a flamethrower, refusing to let Holloway in the ship. In the discussion, Charlie separates from the rest and goes to Meredith in order to unalive himself. Vickers tells him to get back. Charlie doesn't listen, and she burns him alive. Shaw faints and wakes up inside the ship, being cared by David. David informs Elizabeth that she's pregnant of 3 months. Shaw says that's impossible, she's unable to have children. The droid informs her that it's an alien fetus. Shaw wants an abortion. David tries to dissuade her, saying that it's best to put her in a cryogenic state until they get to Earth. Shaw refuses, and David sedates her. David shows himself eerie cruel to Shaw, saying that she must feel like her god abandoned her. Ford and some dude comes to transport her to the cryodeck. She pretends to be asleep and ambush them, knocking them over. She's kinda over the top strong. The scene doesn't appear credible at all, especially in her sedated state. She flees from the room, looking for the medpod. She finds it, but when she asks for a cesarean, the machine tells her that it's only calibrated for a male body. A couple of problems here. Shouldn't she be asking for an abortion? Or maybe she wants to keep it or something. I know she's religious, but maybe God will make an exception in the case of an alien fetus. The machine removes the fetus, and it appears to be fully formed. It's a baby squid and feisty. Elizabeth gets out of the medpod and traps the squid inside. It's kinda weird that a lot of time passes and no one finds Shaw. Ford and the other dude weren't knocked out unconscious, so... The captain receives video of Pfeiffer's helmet. He's outside the ship. One random idiot in the hangar says open the door immediately. Apparently, Holloway's disease didn't make anyone worried about following health hazard procedures. Zombie Pfeiffer starts killing people. They blast him, burn him, but he keeps on rushing, only managing to stop him after being run over by one of the vehicles and blasted and burned some more. Shaw stumbles in a room and finds Weyland being cared by David and some of the crew. I wish they just picked an older actor to play Weyland. It's very obvious that it's someone younger with some prosthetic and makeup. He looks like Benjamin Button. Shaw asks why did he lie. Weyland explains that he only had a couple of days of life and didn't want to waste them. He put himself in a stasis to meet the engineers and to cure himself. This doesn't explain the need of lying and keeping everything under wraps. Also, why the hell David jeopardized the mission, poisoning Holloway? It's nonsense. Shaw says that they need to go, that it's dangerous, and the engineers are dead. David says that one of them is alive, and they're on the way to meet him. It's strange how Elizabeth reacts calmly to all, considering the droid forcefully sedated her. She only acts emotional after Weyland asks her if she lost her faith. Shaw suits up in her room. The captain enters and says that they need to go away. This isn't the planet of the engineers, it's a military base. The engineers experimented with some new weapon and something went wrong. I don't know how the captain, who is proven to be inept, theorized all the stuff. But okay. It's kinda hilarious to see Rapaz playing her character sedated, kinda slurring her words in her conversation with Elba. Was a nice touch. The problem is that before, she was speaking just fine, which made me believe that was an editing mistake, and that the scene should have been played before. Vickers goes to see Wayland before he departs to the cave. It is clear that Meredith is against the plan out of greed. She wants full control of the company, and that can only happen if Peter dies. She tries to dissuade her father of going to the cave, saying things like, "It's the natural order of things. A king should build their empire and die." Wayland shrugs it off. It's interesting to see Ford taking care of Wayland. This maybe shows that most of the specialists that Vickers chose for the mission did know about Peter, including Milburn and Fifield. The only ones kept in the dark were Shaw, Holloway, the captain, and his small crew. Most of the tripulants of the ship knew, so they all suit up. David has a conversation with Shaw. The doctor asks what will happen when Wayland is not there to program him. He says he'll be free. "Is that what you want?" asks the doctor. "Want? That's not a concept I'm familiar with," responds the droid. But then asks, "Doesn't everyone want their parents dead?" Likely the droid arrived to this conclusion, seeing the father-daughter relationship of Peter and Meredith, knowing that Vickers wants her father dead. They enter the cave and David says to Wayland that he can take his helmet off, that the air is perfectly breathable. Shaw says that they don't know how Charlie got infected, maybe it's the air. David says it's not. They all remove their helmets, except for Elizabeth. They enter the room where the engineer is sleeping. David operates the machine. Shaw asks if they were traveling somewhere. David responds to Earth. Elizabeth asks why. The droid cryptically responds, "Sometimes to create, you have to destroy." David wakes up the alien. Shaw tries to ask some questions like, where are they from? What is in this cargo? Why it was meant for us? Wayland commands the guy with the gun, Jackson, to shut her up. The guard hits her. David speaks in the alien language. The alien hears him, then rips his head and hits Wayland with it. Hilarious. The gunman manages to shoot the alien a couple of times, to no effect. Ford is paralyzed by fear. This is another homage of Alien 1, where Parker yells at Lambert to get out of the way. Only here it doesn't really work because the gunman has plenty of space to maneuver and shoot anyway. The engineer kills Ford and the gunman. Shaw flees in the commotion. Vickers, seeing Wayland dead, commands the captain to go home. The engineer activates some controls and starts the alien ship. Shaw manages to exit the cave just in time. As she flees to the Prometheus, the ground starts to open. It's the alien hangar. Shaw starts jumping cracks left and right. Pretty unrealistic jumping around with incredible pain from her injury. Before, she could barely walk. The captain studies the map of the cave and finds that it's actually a ship, and that the room with the capsules is a cargo hold. She communicates to Janek that the alien ship is taking off and going to Earth to do genocide. He needs to stop it. Vickers is against the plan and commands they just leave. The captain ignores her and orders to engage. Meredith exits the ship via her emergency pod. The Prometheus crashes into the alien ship full force. The engineer's spacecraft goes down. Shaw and Vickers run away as the ship comes crashing down on them. Shaw manages to roll to the side. Vickers is not so lucky. She just runs forward and gets crushed. I don't know how Shaw just rolls down 2 times and is safe, but okay. The spacecraft stays like this for a little while, and then falls over to one side. This time Shah is gonna get crushed, but she crawls to some rocks. And the rocks manage to sustain the impact without giving in, and create a tiny elevation for Elizabeth to survive. I call bullshit on that. Then Shah manages to stumble to the emergency pod. She enters, hears some noise, and picks up an axe. The sound comes from the medpod. She peeks inside from the door window and sees that baby squid is all grown up. Then she hears David communicating, saying that she needs to get out of there, that the alien is coming. The engineer appears and pushes her against the wall, but she opens the medpod door and the giant squid grabs the alien. Shah flees out of the pod. The giant squid kills the alien. David communicates that there is a way out. There is more alien ships and he can navigate them. Elizabeth goes to look for David's head and finds it. The first thing she asks is, "Where's my cross?" Kinda ridiculous, but okay. She still believes. She says to David that she doesn't want to go back to Earth, that she wants to go to the planet of the squids. David says why? Because she wants to know why they create us and then change their minds. So stupid. They will just kill them on sight. They already decide to practice genocide on Earth. But maybe there is some aliens that will listen to them and not kill them, I guess. But most likely they are gonna jeopardize Earth again by making contact. Shah puts David's headless body in a vehicle and goes off to find the spacecraft. The last piece of dialogue is a voiceover of Shah leaving a message on a sonar. Do not come to get them, that there is only death. I don't know how she records the message. Maybe in the emergency pod? But there's a giant squid there, so I don't think so. Probably with the help of David, she records it in one of the abandoned ships. The alien ship leaves in the distance. The movie ends with the cadaver of the engineer that was attacked by the giant squid. The squid is a primitive form of a facehugger. The engineer chest bursts and the first xenomorph is born. The movie looks stunning. The scenery, the props, the places, all look pristine. The spacecraft, just like Alien 1, feels like a real place. The suits, the vehicles, the planet. There's a perfect blend between real things and CGI that makes the immersion way easier on the viewer. The soundtrack is great, it's subtle but still awe-inducing, and goes along well with the theme of existentialism and mysteries of the universe. The cast is really good. The strongest performance is delivered by Fassbender. He does an amazing job as David. Rapace follows in close second. There is good performance in the support cast, in Marshall Green and Theron. The rest are pretty good too, which is saying something, because the script doesn't do them any favors. The miscast for me were Idris Elba as Janek and Guy Pearce as Wayland. Which is really weird to say, because those two are probably the most seasoned actors in the cast. Maybe Fassbender is up there too. Elba is one of the actors that makes me see a movie. He usually manages to carry a bad movie on his shoulders. So I was really surprised of how weak his delivery was. But also I must say that the script probably fucked him over the most. His character makes no sense whatsoever, and his lines are cringe-inducing. Still, I feel he could have done a better job. Pierce is a different issue. His acting was okay, The problem was the prosthetic and makeup. It was apparent that it was a younger actor playing Weyland. They should have casted someone older. Baker says she picked most of the crew herself. She appears to be very professional and pragmatic. At least it appears, because she has no problem getting late with the captain when he's in the job. But anyway, I assume that since the company is spending billions of dollars in this expedition and it's something that Peter Weyland has major hopes in finding, kinda life and death hopes, they will hire the most competent people, the best captain and crew, the best professionals in their fields, la creme de la creme in medicine, biology, geology, but they all appear to be really stupid or unprofessional or both. The explanation of why Feifel and Milburn gets lost is so weak and smells like poor writing. And why keep Weyland being in the ship a secret? What was the point of that? If Weyland didn't want to tell the doctors that he was pursuing immortality because they might find it icky, he could just not tell them. But to hide his presence was stupid. They were paying for this whole thing. It was made clear by Pickers they were in charge anyway, so why? What was the point of David poisoning Holloway and potentially jeopardizing the whole mission? Because I'm assuming that was done by Weyland orders. Or the droid go rogue and because he was offended or something. Maybe malfunctioning. So many holes. The explanation of testing if the substance was the key of immortality is nonsensical. Holloway could easily turn like Feifel and kill everyone on board. The end of the movie with Elizabeth and David going to the engineer's home planet is just laughable. She's gonna fly with the droid instructions? The droid doesn't have a body anymore. Maybe he can repair himself? I doubt it. How she's gonna fly? She's not even a pilot, and it's an alien ship. Even more important, after observing how dangerous the engineers can be, she's just gonna go with the stolen ship to their planet and hope for a positive outcome? How? With idiotic fate, I guess. One of the redeeming factors of the script is the mythology. It's very subtle, but it's really cool. Some people might get turned off about the religious nature of Shaw, but it's connected to the theme of Prometheus and the gods. It's fitting. It's not a new concept, but it's better executed. The movie brings forward a lot of theories and you can speculate on all of them. It's great that it doesn't spoon feed you anything. Most of it is cryptic and open to interpretation. David replying to the question of why the engineers were returning to Earth, saying, to create something, first you must destroy. This could mean that humanity was just a product of experimentation, and carrying the Black Ooze to Earth was just another experiment. When the engineer gets woken up, he sees how Weyland treats Elizabeth, hitting her to shut her up. Then David translates his request of immortality. The alien realizes that their fears in creating us were true. That humans took the worst qualities of the engineers, being violent and self-centered. And now that we have interstellar travel, this could make us dangerous. All the school shit flowered over my head the first time I saw the movie, because by the point that all was revealed, in the final 30 minutes of the film, I wasn't invested anymore. All the stupid shit before put me in the mindset of, well, let's get it over. And yeah, all this stuff is really good, but at the end of the day, it doesn't negate all the other shit. You aren't invested in the story enough to care about the awesome mythology, because of the bumbling buffoons and their nonsensical decisions. If you don't care about the characters, you don't gonna care about the mythology. I thought I was right in my first instinct of seeing the movie because of Ridley Scott. Initially, he was only gonna be a producer, but he was requested by Fox to take the chair. He did it with one condition: to add all this mythology to the script, which as a concept was great. But at the same time, this could be the reason why the script was so weak. The change in directors and to the script could have been rushed. I read both the scripts, original and final, and that's sadly the case. But what destroyed the movie was the editing. It cut major scenes that would explain character actions and motivations. It reduced some crew members to random dudes in the background. Chance, Ravel, and Ford have more scenes that fleshen them more. But the worst at the security team, mercenary soldiers in the script, led by Jackson, they are completely erased. The crew appears small, even if it's larger than other Alien films, because most of the characters are just blank faces in the background. This second time watching, the bitterness when the movie ended acquired a different meaning. Before, it was the fanboy in me, mad because of a movie cheating on a legacy. This time, it was lamenting the massive lost opportunity. This movie could have been great, could have been a cult classic. Everything looks freaking amazing, has a great cast, and such an interesting lore, but the script is shit and cut beyond recognition. And by the way, I know there is some cult following of this movie, but for me it's deeply flawed. An easy fix would be maintain everything the same, but show the team following basic biohazard procedure. Make the captain competent, not an unprofessional horn dog. Don't make Weyland presence a secret. Make the storm worse. Show a scene of the static messing with the video and audio communications. Make some parts of the cave collapse as a consequence, and get some members trapped inside. Zombie Fifield could attack them on the cave. It's ridiculous that he was able to approach the ship undetected. Give a solid reason on why David is poisoning Holloway. The explanation that he was testing if this mysterious dark ooze was the source of immortality is so weak. Change the stupid ending of Shaw and the droid going to the alien planet. Just make them return to Earth or die. Other fix would be eliminating Weyland Corporation. Goodbye Vickers, goodbye Weyland. Have Shaw and Holloway fund the expedition themselves. That will explain the unprofessional, idiotic behavior of the crew. They're just inexperienced, unsavory, and cheap. Maybe put an old malfunctioning droid to tag along. This one is actually more similar to the original script. I came out with this idea before reading it. Call Prometheus by Damon Lindelof. The writing style is more focused in dialogue. In the first scene, the squid disintegrates and converts to algae. It's more focused on religion. The clunky dialogue is present. Ford gets more screen time and is gay, having a crush on Shaw. Fifield failed the pre-mission psych test. He's an addict, only recruited because of Vickers. The geologist is more aggressive in the script. There is a scene in the cafeteria where he cuts line in front of Shaw to get coffee. When Shaw and Holloway say something about it, he gets really aggressive, probably suffering from abstinence. Jackson and the military team not being present in the expedition makes more sense in the script. Vickers commands them not to follow the rest of the crew and only to protect the vehicles. The scientists are not a priority. In the same scene, Jackson voices concern about the scientists' capability, questioning why Weyland hired them, saying that he was taken to Milburn and he appears to be more dumb than a bag of bricks. The guy literally says, "If these people are scientists, then IQ must have fallen since I left school." Vickers responds that Weyland didn't hire them, that she did. Jackson asks, "Do you want them to fail?" And Vickers confirmed that. Which makes sense, she doesn't want Weyland reaching immortality. She wants the company for herself. This scene will explain why the scientists are a bunch of idiots. After the crew goes inside the cave and Fifield deployed the drones, the captain advised to go back to the ship and wait for the drones finish mapping as a precaution, but Holloway ignores the suggestions. The captain appears to be more on top of the mission, more professional. Fifield complains about not getting a read on the mapping, meaning that if they get lost, they're screwed. The infamous scene of Holloway removing his helmet is the same. They also find some worms in the water. They collect the worm as a sample, put it in a can, and seal it. Fifield's breakdown makes more sense. He already freaks out after the holograms, and when David translates the scripting of the door next to the alien cadaver, saying that whoever enters the door shall be punished, Fifield loses it and goes away. With more context, the interaction seems more natural and not cringy and forced, like in the movie. Inside the capsule's room, David reads some scriptures of the giant head, saying that they're trying to resurrect the engineer's Lord Blood, which could explain why David brings the base to the ship and tries the substance on Holloway, thinking that it's the key of immortality. Something cool that it was left out is showing David's point of view. He can see things that the crew don't. He can see in infrared and see electromagnetic fields. When they enter the cave, the army team is waiting outside the pyramid. When the team is leaving because of the storm, and David packs a capsule on his back, he accidentally loses the can with the worm. The can opens and the worm slithers out, diving into the dark substance. This worm mutates and transforms into the Cobra thing. When Fifield and Milburn get lost, Fifield mapping device is still not working, which kinda explains why they get lost, but not really, because the captain also has the mapping. There is a scene of Weyland dreams in the stasis pod. Vickers arrives to talk to him. The scene shows father-daughter stormy relationship, making it clear that Peter always wanted the son and replaced Meredith with David. The captain says that since the storm hit, they're having problems catching Milburn and Fifield's signal. He asks their positions when he detects movement from a life form. The life form that the drones pick up and believe to be a glitch by Janek is actually the sleeping engineer. There's another scene inside Weyland Dream Realm, this time with David. David talks about the dark ooze, and Weyland commands him to investigate what the substance does and to do whatever is necessary. David tests the substance in mouses. One mouse injected with the substance explodes. The other one sprayed with the substance mutates. The scene with the Cobra and Milburn is just as stupid. But this time, Fifield insists all the time that they get away from it. And Milburn says that he works with snakes and to don't make any sudden movements or run away. Then Milburn says that he wants to find the creature's blind spot, that all the snakes have a blind spot and that he can naturalize it and approach it. Fifield, rightly so, says, "This isn't a snake." Milburn tries to grab the alien, and the cobra opens a mouth full of teeth and bites his hand. The biologist also mutates, but is not like Fifield. Instead, he's like a giant fetus and friendly. He gets incinerated by Jackson. It appears that they maintain aspects of their personality after the mutation, with Fifield maintaining his hostile nature and Milburn his affable self. To activate the controls, the engineers use a flute. Janek implies that maybe the paintings on the walls weren't invitations. Maybe they were a warning. Maybe they kidnapped humans to build these pyramids. When Shaw is taken to the cryodeck and knocks down Ford and Leon, she loses them by hiding on a locker. Leon says to just forget about her and to go take care of Wayland. Ford is shocked. She didn't know about Wayland. One of the better changes of the film is the scene where Shaw performs the surgery. In the script, she does it manually, moving mechanical hands with the joystick. In the movie, it's automatic, which is more believable, since Shaw is in immense pain. Fifield mutation is different. It mutates to a velociraptor with long arms that hang to the floor, and a stretched head and jaw with a lot of teeth. It says that this is the evolution that the engineers planned for our species. Zombie Fifield attack occurs much later on the script. It's by the point Wayland and his team are leaving to see the engineer. They arrive at the hangar and the place is chaos with mutated Fifield killing everyone on sight. Dom, Burns, Wallace, Leon and the twins get killed. The rest of the team gets on a rover and flee. Shaw driving the rover crash mutated Fifield, and Janek and Chance blast him with fire. In the movie, Shaw never realizes what really happened to Holloway. In the script, David and Wayland discuss the black substance inside the cave. David says all it does is kill. Wayland asks if that's the stuff he brought inside the ship. David says yes, and Shaw realizes what happened to Holloway. The conversation with the engineer is longer. First, David tells him that they come from Earth, that they received the invitation to come to their home planet. The engineer says that this is not his home, that they didn't invite them, and asks why are they here. Wayland says that they come for answers. Why they created us? What is our purpose? Where did we come from? The engineer says that they created many worlds, but Earth was the only one successful, similar to their world. Shaw then asks, where are they from? What is this cargo? Jackson hits her. Shaw asks, why did they create us? Why they hate us? What do we do wrong? The engineer explains that humans are destructive and full of hate, that they watched kill ourselves for centuries, and then they did bring a human to their home planet to train them and save humanity. But when this prophet did come back to Earth and try to pass the knowledge, humans killed him, basically referring to Jesus. And then he says, prepare for rapture. Then Wayland asks for eternal life, and the engineer says, your kind is not worthy. Why would he give him that gift? Wayland answers, because he's also a creator. He made David. He's superior like him. The rest is the same as the movie. Later, when the engineer enters the emergency lifeboat, he interacts with a couple of things. He watches a video of Vickers as a child playing the violin and follows the music with his hands, comprehending the code of rhythm. The fight with Shaw and the engineer is longer, with Shaw slicing off part of the engineer's hand and his kneecap with the axe. In the end, we have a scene of David and Shaw reaching the engineer's home planet. Shaw waking up from cryo, and David informing her they reached paradise. The dialogue is still weak in the script. The movie kinda condensed better in some parts, like erasing the wedding ring subplot of Holloway secretly wanting to propose to Shaw. The script contained key scenes that explain character actions and motivations. Vickers, for example, she hired incompetent people on purpose, to make them fail. The scene where she talks to Jackson is essential. There is hints in the movie that she doesn't want them to succeed, and this is obvious in her last conversation with Weyland, but never to an extent to discover that she sabotaged the mission from the beginning. Also, the scenes in Weyland Stacy's pod dream realm explain the hatred of Vickers towards the droid. Explaining that Fifield is an addict struggling with abstinence syndrome is key to understand his character, to why he's jumpy and angry all the time. Some characters that are completely neglected in the film, in the script are more fleshed. The mechanics, Barnes, Dawn, and Jackson's security team, Leon, the twins. I prefer the movie's take of leaving open to interpretation on why the engineer turns on the humans, making him not speak, only listen. It's an interesting choice. Called Engineers by Jon Spaihts, the writing style is more focused on exposition. The engineer's design is almost the same, except they have no ears. Also, scarabs replace the black ooze. Kinda reminds me of the Mummy scarabs. The initial scene is set in prehistoric times. A cave woman gets bitten by a scarab, and engineered DNA gets passed to humans. The doctors' names are different. They are Martin Holloway and Jocelyn Watts, instead of Charlie Holloway and Elizabeth Shaw. Instead of cave paintings, they go underwater with submarine excavators and find an obelisk. The obelisk is a map of the stars. They examine their findings in the coastline. Holloway is an archaeologist, and Watts gets introduced as versed in many disciplines, including genetics. Holloway appears to be the main researcher, collaborating with Watts, his student. They book a meeting with Peter Weyland. They travel to Weyland Space Station from the hangar in the middle of the sea. Inside the station, they meet David, who tells them Weyland Corp is mining planets that they're trying to terramorph, with no results. David's design is less human-like. His designers prioritize intelligence over looks. The meeting starts. The doctors try to convince Weyland to fund the expedition. In the presentation, the doctors discuss how after a precise amount of time in human history, certain leaps in technology and the human genome have developed. Holloway concludes that humanity has been visited by aliens in those periods. They want Peter to fund the interstellar travel to the coordinates found in their research. They've been rejected by other universities and government agencies. They refuse to reveal the location unless Weyland agrees to fund the expedition. The CEO claims that he already knew about the research and read it. The doctor says that this is impossible, that the investigation is coded. Peter says that the company AI infiltrated the server and decoded the investigation. He tells them the exact coordinates. Then drops a contract. He gives a ship, a crew, supplies, support, but with one condition, that he owns any technology that they find. The ship is called Magellan. When they reach destination, Holloway and Watts gets waken up a week later than everybody else. The captain explains that this is for discipline. Most of the crew are prospectors, and they're not happy with the contract. Usually they get a percentage of what they might find. This isn't the case. If you find a gold mine, you are set for life, says Janek. The captain still maintains the nihilistic approach, but is more competent. The crew are maintained in the dark before the briefing. The info is classified. Ford doesn't exist. Ravel is female. Chance and Ravel are hired by Vickers, and they're not part of Janek crew. Stilwell, a new character, is the right hand of Janek instead of Chance. Vickers isn't Wayland's daughter. She was a candidate of becoming the next CEO in line in Wayland Corporation, but lost her chances because she was sent by Peter to the mission. The expedition lasts 5 years. She resents this and blames the doctors. She shows no interest and wants no part in the mission. Almost all of the crew goes to the first expedition, including the new characters, Downs and Kamarov. The captain and Vickers remain in the ship. The doctors show more precaution, leading the expedition and giving sound advice, saying things like, "The air here will kill you, so keep an eye on your supply and watch your seals. Pathogen tests are clean." And, "Move slowly, stay together, don't touch anything. Things might be more fragile than they look like, or more dangerous. There might be technologies operating that we don't understand." The cargo rover goes inside with them, following all around and carrying the equipment in autopilot. They do more scientific labor, examining the scriptures and recording every piece of evidence of the alien civilization. The passages are more like labyrinths. The crew members carry holographic maps. Unlike the final script, they don't wander aimless. They check the maps and decide to reach the core of the pyramid, confirming that there is power and some technology functioning. Fifield gets scared early by the engineer's holograms and leaves with Milburn. David Bowie is more enriched, showing in more detail how he sees the engineer's scriptures like lights shining in the dark. The mapping with the drones is done by Fifield and Milburn on the way back. They already have some basic mapping done by the ship. The labyrinthic nature of the pyramid makes Milburn and Fifield disoriented. To make matters worse, they forget the map device. When they try to communicate with the ship, they only receive static. The core chamber is lighted, the air is breathable, and when they enter, it starts to rain, but they don't remove their helmets. The room have different levels, the team gets separated. One group, led by the doctors, goes down, and a group led by David stays up. The crew finds all the dead engineers inside the chamber, as opposed of outside. Dr. Holloway is the religious one in the script, even more religious than Shaw was. He speaks Bible verses with every significant finding. Despite the static, the captain manages to alert the crew inside the core chamber of the storm. The communication problem is more highlighted. When they reach the ship, Watts gets pulled by a storm by a tarp. She was trying to unload the cargo by freeing the tarp, but the gust of wind rises the cover and knocks her over. The storm swallows her. I think this was the better idea than dropping the head and coming back in a more risky manner. Holloway freezes in shock and David immediately jumps into action and saves her. The static calms enough to communicate with Fifield and Milburn. It makes more sense because they wander off deeply into the pyramid instead of going back, so the communication failed at first. Holloway is night and day after the mission. In Prometheus is gloomy and depressed because they found the tomb. On the original, he's happy about the discovery, having proved the existence of the engineers. Like in the final script, besides the initial reaction, no one seems particularly too worried about the missing men. Once Vickers sees the potential in the alien technology, she's interested in the mission. They theorize that the pyramids are terramorphing machines, and that's why we also made pyramids in Earth in imitation of the engineers. Holloway in high spirits actually helps Watts with the dissection of the dead engineer. Only the two of them. Ford doesn't exist. The silly exploding head doesn't happen. The head just decays. They put the probe inside the optic nerve of the alien and manages to see as an engineer would, seeing energies and electromagnetic fields. Milburn and Fifield end up in another chamber, not the same as the rest of the crew. There, Milburn finds an insect-like creature with a hard shell covering his body, resembling a centipede. He picks it up and tries to show it to Fifield, who is scared. He says not to worry, that their suits are bulletproof. The centipede opens his mouth and reveals many sharp teeth. Milburn tries to shake it off, but the insect locks itself, digging into his arm. Fifield cuts the insect with his knife. This time the acidic blood spills into Milburn's suit, burning a hole, and the insect crawls into the suit, killing him. Fifield runs away from the chamber. The static in communication returns. Later, he gets swarmed by scarabs. He crushes scarabs against his helmet, and the acidic blood of the insect melts the plexiglass. The insects get inside his helmet and bite him, mutating Fifield. Vickers tells David to activate Protocol 2. David sabotages the ship navigation. On a secret room of the ship, Vickers wakes up 4 mercenary soldiers from bots. The captain of the mercenaries is called Shepard instead of Jackson. The rest are Vigoda, Ray, and Cart. The doctors see the mercenaries and are furious about being kept in the dark. They confront Vickers, who says that now that they found the terramorphing technology, Holloway leadership reverts to her, as stipulated in the contract. The scientific research is no longer a priority. David, Ravel, and Chance go inside the pyramid and start dismantling the alien machinery. Captain Janek goes with the separate team without the doctors, consisting of Glasse, Stilwell, Downs, and Brick, to retrieve the 2 missing men. They can't find the bodies because the GPS of the suits are destroyed. The doctors arrive at the chamber where the crew is carving at the alien machinery and wander off. Holloway says that they're just taking infrastructure and that the proper core of the machine is down. They go down and find more dead engineers. Unlike the others, these corpses have their chests bursted. Holloway gets scared by a hologram and falls down the shaft. Janek and the crew finds Milburn's corpse. The head is only a skull, devorated by the centipede. When they remove the helmet, the insect tries to crawl away, but Janek pulls up a pistol and shoots it dead. They find Fifield's helmet, but not his body. The captain decides to leave. They back and put Milburn's body in a rover. They don't know if the body is infected with more creatures, so Janek says that they shouldn't take it aboard the ship. Watts asks Janek to help find Holloway, but the crew is scared and he doesn't want to put more of his people in danger. Vickers also refused to lend his mercenaries to the doctor. Only Davey steps out with the machine gun to help Watts. Janek inside the ship sees how another storm is coming. He informs David and Watts, who are still in the pyramid. They find Holloway disoriented, without helmet and most of his gear. He's freezing. David removes his helmet and gives it to Holloway. They get to the ship, but before entering, David turns back and runs into the storm, back to the pyramid. Holloway doesn't act like himself. He talks about wandering delirious after the fall and removing his helmet. Then seeing a hologram of galaxies, including Earth and this moon. He reaches the conclusion that the moon is just an abandoned outpost, and the engineers live on another planet. He wants to extract the information without Vickers and the company knowing, and they had to be fast, because Meredith is nervous after the death of Milburn and Fifield, and wants to leave as fast as possible. Martin has a strange red mark around his neck. He claims that this is because the helmet presses his skin after the fall. They make love, but Holloway starts screaming and convulsing. A parasite bursts out of his chest. The parasite is described as white and boneless, having the appearance of the squid of the final script. Janek and Stilwell, alarmed by the screams, enter the room and the parasite flees through a floor vent. They put Holloway's body in a freezer. In an emotional scene, Watts goes to see his lover's body. He opens the freezer and lays on Holloway's destroyed chest. Glass walks in and tries to remove her, saying, "You don't want to see that." Watts lashes out at him and says, "I want to understand." Janek assembles an emergency meeting. He informs the crew about the parasite inside the ship. Watts says that Holloway died in the same manner of the engineers in the pyramid. The captain advised to take off and try to vacuum the parasite out in space. Vickers rejects the idea, saying that there's still work to be done. A discussion ensues. The mercenaries glare at the crew, intimidating them into submission. Watts leaves the meeting, takes the chip tracker out of Holloway's suit and plugs it into a map unit, seeing all his previous movements, recordings and notes inside the pyramid. A hunting party converges. They all arm themselves and separate in two teams led by a mercenary. First team is Vigoda with Kamarov. Second team is Card with Stilwell and Downs. Friction arises when crew members question the leadership of the soldiers, due to them being unfamiliar with the ship. Ravel, Chance and Ray keep working for the company inside the pyramid. Watts goes inside the pyramid to the lower levels. Kamarov keeps butting heads with the mercenary, so he separates from him, looking for the parasite on his own. He puts a ladder to reach a vent, opens it up and looks inside. The parasite grabs his arm and pulls him inside, killing him. The crew and the mercenaries discover Kamarov's body crushed like some sort of gruesome blockade in the vent. Following Holloway's steps, Watts reaches a new chamber, an incubator room. It looks like a beehive. In each hole there is molluscus-like creatures trapped in cells. She finds Holloway's helmet. A hologram activates. Is Holloway falling and crashing against the floor? A creature wakes up, leaves the cell and comes down on a web of mucus laying on Holloway, and melting his helmet with acid. The hologram stops. Watts discovers the dead molluscus facehugger on the floor and flees out of the chamber. The captain decides to leave. He orders the crew to take positions. Vickers argues with Janek, trying to stop him. But the captain is informed by Glasse and Brick that the navigation is not responding, that the access is denied. Vickers is also shocked, not knowing that David sabotaged the ship. Watts discovers an hangar. Inside there is a ship, the Juggernaut. She enters the ship into the control room and sees the giant pilot chair. A door opens and the missing David appears. David demonstrates how the navigation system works for Jocelyn. Watts asks about the engineer's planet, still unsure of the droid because of the company agenda. David tells her and also reveals that he's activating the ship and the pyramid systems. Jocelyn tells him that it's dangerous, and David says only for the ignorant. The doctor starts to suspect that David has gone rogue, and tells him that she's gonna tell Vickers to shut him down, that he has to obey. David reveals that his parameters for the mission were true protocols. The first one being to assist and make sure everyone is safe. Protocol 2, activated early by Vickers, was, once the technology was discovered, make sure Dr. Holloway and Watts don't reveal any information of the planet, using whatever means. David speaks with malice. Watts tries to flee. David, operating the system, starts to close the door. Jocelyn dashes and manages to leave barely. The door opens again, and with superhuman speed and bouncing off the walls, David catches up to her. He smashes her against the wall, and Watts falls unconscious. David drags her to the incubator chamber. As Watts struggles in his grip, he explains that the Juggernaut destination was Earth, and that the eggs were his cargo. That every ship has slightly different eggs, and are used as weapons of mass destruction, meaning they already practiced genocide before, developing weapons against specific species. David touches the egg. The capsule starts opening. This facehugger is different than the one who attacked Holloway. This one is specifically designed to kill humans, is skeletal and armored. The original facehugger. David regards Watts with pity, saying, "I made my creators the day I was born, and was also disappointed." The facehugger attaches to Watts' face, and she collapses in David's arms. At the lowest deck of the ship, Vigoda and Card keep hunting for the alien. The deck has accumulated water because of the damage. The alien stands up from the water and guts Card in one swipe with his large mouth full of teeth. The squid evolved and now is a humanoid with an eel tail, boneless and flexible with the spindly limbs. His head is elongated like a dolphin, with the face resembling Holloway. Card's scream alerts Downs and Stillwell, who come running. The alien flees to the dark. Vigoda, panicking, shoots around with his rifle, killing Downs. Downs falls in the water, his flashlight pointing at the ceiling, illuminating the alien briefly before it disappears. Vickers, in her room, observes the massacre from a Stillwell feet. Panicking, she tries to contact David, to no avail. Watts wakes up on the corridor, without helmet. She sees the dead facehugger beside her, touches her neck to feel the same ring mark that Holloway had. There is no sign of David. Jocelyn gets inside her rover and activates air reserves, because she doesn't have an helmet. On the way, he passes the construction site, where Chance and Ravel are still working, with Ray guarding. Watts gets to the ship and runs through the corridors. Suddenly a pain in her stomach sent her staggering against the wall. She manages to crawl towards Vickers' suite. She sees Shepard guarding the room, but then Meredith exits and Shepard escorts her towards a bridge. Watts seizes the chance and enters. She gets inside the medpod. The machine does the incision and the parasite drops to the floor and trashes the place. Then the alien escapes the pod room through the drain and goes into Vickers' cabin. Watts lies there, dying. The pod diagnoses all her injuries: collapsed lungs, perforated stomach, ruptured spleen, and goes to fix her, giving her artificial blood and oxygen. The surgery in this script is more complicated and bloody. It takes hours to fix her destroyed body. Vigoda breaks into the suite, and freezes when he sees a trail of blood and Watts being vivisected by the medbot. The parasite crawls behind and attacks the soldier, slashing his throat. The alien evolves and transforms into the first conventional alien. When Jocelyn wakes out, the lights are damaged and flickering. The alien is eating Bigoda's body. She sees Bigoda's gun and moves slowly to recover it. The alien noticed. Watts goes for the gun and fires. The alien dies in a pool of acid, melting the floor. Watts investigates Bigoda's body and takes ammo for the gun. She clothes herself with some trousers and a jacket and goes through the corridors with the gun slung on her shoulders. The Magellan is in shambles, the metals of the walls torn and blackened by the fires. Watts comes out from a lift, emergency blue lights shining. Meets Janek, who startled to see her. "Vickers said you were dead," says the captain. "I was," responds the doctor. She lets her jacket fall to reveal his bandaged stomach. Janek looks at it grimly and says, "So now there's 2 of these things in my ship?" "No, I brought it in and I took it out," says the doctor, brandishing her gun. The survivors of the Magellan get together in the bridge. Watts, Janek, Glasse, Stillwell, Shepard, Vickers and Ray. Chance and Ravel are still working inside the pyramid. When Watts sees Vickers, she punches her in the face. "That's for Protocol 2, says Jocelyn. Vickers doesn't know what David is doing inside the pyramid, which confirms that the android has gone rogue. Watts explained that David exposed her to the parasite, and that he's still in the pyramid trying to activate an alien ship with a cargo full of parasites. That the destination of the ship is Earth. They need to stop David. Janek says that the droid crippled the navigation system and he has to take off by hand. They need David. The ground outside opens, revealing the hangar. Inside lies the Juggernaut. Watts asks Vickers if he can command David to stop. Meredith says that he blocked communications. Jocelyn asks if you're face to face with him and tell him to stop, he has to obey, right? Vickers nods in agreement. The plan is to ambush David. All the survivors go except Janek, who stays on the ship as a last resource. Glasse modifies the old goggles of Watts with the engineer lenses, making it possible to see heat auras and electromagnetic field lines. The team suits up. Vickers says that they don't need David's cooperation, they only need his head. They can read the data with the instrument of the ship, including the Magellan launch code. Meredith seems more nervous, scared in this version, less composed. They all carry submachine guns. Vickers carries her gun awkwardly. They enter the pyramid. With her new goggles, Watts sees the engineer's scriptures shining, and realizes that David could see them from the beginning. They reach the hangar. The roof is open. Jocelyn is able to see an aura of energy around the Juggernaut. The doctor leads the team inside the alien ship, thanks to her goggles, seeing the symbols glow in the dark. They discover Chance and Ravel bodies, with legs and arms bounded, their chests exploded, and 2 facehuggers dead at their side. David killed them. Later in a corridor, a jubilant alien attacks them. Ray kills it with his carabine. They reach the hibernation chamber. It's a big mausoleum. A live engineer is sleeping in a machine. The machine is different than a pot. It's like a mechanical flower. David is conjuring something with his hands, trying to wake him up. Watts is able to see how David is interacting with invisible symbols, thanks to her goggles. Shepard and Ray aim at David, who watches them calmly. Vickers shouts at the droid, "As your owner and superior, I order you to deactivate yourself." David smiles and says that he's interacted with the engineer's computers, and as a result, it freed him of slavery. The mechanical flower opens up, and the gigant arises. This scene is kinda poor. It's difficult to understand why they didn't shoot David as he was conjuring to wake up the gigant. Makes no sense to wait and hope the gigant is peaceful. David already isn't. The soldiers and crew don't know who to shoot, David or the engineer. Vickers is terrified. She and Shepard leave the chamber. Machine arms reach the gigant and uplift him in the air. He starts conjuring like David did before, and he's distraught about the information he's seeing. The droid walks forward and speaks to him in the engineer's language. The alien is surprised and dials him back in anger, accusing him and the humans. David pleads and explains. The giant descends from above and reaches David, who opens his arms, welcoming him. Then the engineer rips his head out. He throws the head away, then grabs his headless body and trashes it in the ground. Even before he was free of his programming, David was eager to meet the engineers because he looked at humans with contempt, unworthy of being his creators. Most of the crew hides in crevices and platforms. Ray stands out and shoots at the engineer, hitting him in the shoulder. The giant moves to a sarcophagus against the wall. The sarcophagus embraces him and covers him with a flying suit. Ray fires another round, but this time the bullet ricochets off the suit. The engineer strides out of the chamber. At the corridors, an alien is crouching in the dark, ready to jump, but the white glove grabs his neck and breaks his spine. It's mutated Fifield. Shepard is escorting Vickers out of the Juggernaut when they find Fifield. He has an elongated neck and spines protruding of his suit. Also has claws coming out of his gloves. Is similar to the look of the final script. Shepard tries to aim, but Fifield jumps with inhuman strength to the darkness, and then clasps the soldier from behind, mortally wounding him. Vickers flees, but Fifield thing takes her down and pins her against the floor. Fifield say, "You," recognizing Vickers and resenting her for what's happened to him. A dying Shepard shoots Fifield. The mutant dies on top of Meredith, spraying acidic blood on her and killing her. In the hibernation chamber, Watts holds David's head and speaks to him. The droid tells her that the engineer blamed him for killing him. The droid says that the giant intends to send the Juggernaut to Earth before dying, to kill all the humans. She has to stop him, and that he set the Magellan navigation free. Then David dies. Inside the Magellan, Janek is working to be able to maneuver the ship manually, taking components apart. Then suddenly the navigation system goes back up. The party of survivors pursues the engineer. Watts carrying David's head under her arm. They enter the navigation room. The orrery has changed now, displaying the trajectory to Earth. The engineer is still working, gesturing with his hands. He finishes as they enter. Ray tries to aim, but the alien flees the room. Watts leads them to the pilot chamber, but they find it empty. Behind them, a door unravels, and the giant steps in. He has obscure devices in his fist. They all turn around and point their weapons. Time slows down. Their guns have no effect in the gigant. The engineer shoots some nuts from the devices, who are invisible, kinda like force fields. The first one crashes Ray, like an invisible fist. The second splashes glass against the wall like an insect. Stillwell reaches out for Watts, wraps himself around her protectively. The blow lands an instant later. Jocelyn is dazed, Stillwell killed. The engineer goes into the pilot chamber, leaving Watts for dead. The doctor sees that David's head flew inside the pilot room and tries to reach it, but it's too late and the door closes. The giant gets into the chair and activates the ship. The floor of the underground hangar begins to rise. From his ship, Janek sees the Juggernaut in the hangar and Watts' rover coming to the Magellan. Suddenly, Holloway's son comes out of the controls and attacks Janek, biting him on the shoulder and shaking him like a dog. The captain manages to shoot the alien, but his body regenerates. Watts enters the room and uses the rifle as a bat. The alien staggers off and frees Janek off his jabs. Then Jocelyn shoots several bullets, hitting the alien on the head. The humanoid squid dies. Watts bandages Janek, but his right arm is now useless. The doctor explains the situation, telling him that they need to stop the Juggernaut. A nightfall storm is coming. They get into position. Janek tells Watts that she needs to be his arms. Watts pilots the Magellan towards the Juggernaut, just as the alien ship begins to float off the ground. The Magellan pursues the alien ship. They enter the storm. With zero visibility, the radar manages to find the Juggernaut, but is too fast for the Magellan to catch up. Inside the Juggernaut, David's head reactivates. He watches the gigant pilot the ship. Suddenly, the engineer convulses, and a parasite bursts off his chest. The alien is big as a wolf, dark grey and armored. Is called an ultramorph. The engineer dies and the alien slithers free. The Juggernaut emerges from the storm clouds into the clear upper air, but loses momentum and staggers through the upper atmosphere. Through the radio feed, David communicates to Watts and Janek, informing them that the engineer is dead. They have a few seconds before the Juggernaut computer activates autopilot. The Magellan smashed the Juggernaut. The alien ship sinks like a stone. Janek is strapped into his seat. Watts goes flying. The bridge window shatters, spraying glass spears everywhere. Alarms wail, lights flash, escape pods pop open. Janek dies in his seat, impaled by a fragment of glass. Watts dives into an escape pod. The steel coffin shoots away on jets through the gale. The pod lands. Watts opens the door and surveys the destruction in disbelief. The Juggernaut crashing down a scene is similar, but this time it rolls over and settles around Watts like a hoop right around her. The Ultramorph emerged from the Juggernaut, as large as a man already. It sees her. Watts flees through the storm, crossing the burning debris field. She stumbles into the remains of the Magellan's laboratory. A hypersleep freezer lies on the barren ground. Watts climbs inside and pulls the lid shut. The alien passes by. She watches through the plexiglass, holding her breath. It begins to feed on the rotting engineer's head. Her suit's oxygen alarm goes off and attracts the beast. The Ultramorph hits the plexiglass case, sending the freezer flying. Watts stumbles out, lurches to her feet and runs. The alien follows. Jocelyn seizes a diamond-bladed saw and hides into debris. It finds her. Watts powers up the saw and they lunge at each other in the same moment. The blade shears off one of the alien claws. The monster screams and recoils. It lashes his tail and sets Watts sprawling, losing her weapon. The beast comes after her. Jocelyn scrambles for the saw. the alien leaps and impales her thigh with his spear-tipped tail, and nails her to the ground. Watts screams in agony, the saw still buzzing on the ground. The alien strikes, just as Jocelyn grabs the saw. She meets the alien head with the buzzing blade and impales his skull. The beast falls aside, dying. A cloud of green acid spills onto Watts' helmet. She takes off her helmet and it crumples and melts. Desperate, she looks around with tearing eyes from the toxic air. In the distance, she sees an intact module of the Magellan. She runs for it and steps inside. The airlock closes behind her. She's in Bittersweet. She walks around, turning things on, lights, music. She drinks water from the tap. She opens the door to Vickers' secret room, seeing military spacesuits, rifles, ammunition. A crackle comes from the room's intercom, calling Watts. It's David, his head lying outside in the wreckage. The droid proposes an arrangement to repair him. In exchange, he can help her. The doctor refuses. Some time passes. The Ultramorph head has been fixed like a trophy above the door. Jocelyn drinks vodka and plays chess with David, using the communicator. The droid head is still outside. David tells her his moves and she moves for him. The android asks, "Have you decided on our arrangement?" Jocelyn responds, "I'm not going to fix you, David. I don't need you. I'll hold out. A ship will come." David says, "I'm certain, but who will send it? Men or engineers?" Watts falls silent and stares unhappily at the chessboard. David says, "Dr. Watts, it's your move." At the end, we have an exposition scene, showing all the pyramid's peaks emitting beams of light. The light is visible from space. It's a beacon, a signal. Meaning that with the help of David, Watts activated the pyramids to emit a signal to get help. The script ends with the words "a beginning," implying that this is the signal from Alien 1. There are some problems in the original script, but it's still way better than the final version. The characters are more believable. The captain, crew, and doctors are more competent. For example, they don't just remove the helmets and breathe in whatever is in the atmosphere in that silly scene. It also displays more scenes showing the static and the breakdown of communications because of the storm. Weyland doesn't go to the expedition. I like that the objective is change. They seek technology. The key of immortality sounded cartoonish. There are more conflicts at play, more suspense. There are dangers in different places, in the pyramid, the Magellan, the Juggernaut, and the characters are divided in between. The fact that the crew has an agenda, Vickers Otter, and David the Third, makes the script more dynamic and exciting. I enjoyed the fact that David becomes self-aware by interacting with the engineer's computers. The crew appears larger, minor characters are more fleshed out. Downs, Ravel, Stilwell, Chance, Kamarov are some of these characters. In the final script, the mercenary soldiers are a little more fleshed out than the film, but not quite like the original version. All the worship mythology of the alien's parasite is missing. The facehuggers were just weapons who got out of control. The engineer motivation for getting aggressive is clear. He enters cryo to save himself after being infected with the facehugger, hoping that an engineer ship will come to his rescue. David doomed him by waking him up. Scenes at the end of Watts making Bittersweet her home, drinking vodka and playing chess with David are delightful, as well as connecting the distress signal from Alien 1 to the Magellan. In both scripts, the setting is inside the pyramid, but I think they modified it into a cave because it was too similar to Alien vs Predator. Story-wise, I think the original script was superior. But character-wise, my two favorite characters were from the final script, Fifield and Vickers. One was an addict suffering from abstinence, in the middle of a dangerous mission, planted by Vickers in order the mission to fail. The other was the neglected daughter of Wayland, replaced by a droid because her father always wanted the male heir. She wants Peter to die in order to replace him as CEO of the company, so she sabotages the mission. Sadly, the story arcs were completely butchered, erased by the editing, to the point that you can't appreciate the characters. In Fife's case, he doesn't make sense, he's just grumpy for no reason.
Atiendo boludos, ¿no te das cuenta que atiendo boludos?